Denied at a Queens Bank blockchain CEO fires the entire branch team in 10 minutes. Do you know who I am? Aisha Carter's voice was quiet but carried the weight of every door that had clicked shut in her face over the years. At exactly 9:01 a.m. on a cool spring morning, she stepped through the tinted glass doors of the Nationwide Trust branch on a bustling Queens Avenue, her fingertips brushing the logo embossed on her EquiChain business card. The lobby's faint hum of copier ink and stale coffee couldn't drown out the tension that rippled through the room as the teller glanced up, mistaking her poised confidence for entitlement. Aisha squared her shoulders, black silk blouse tucked neatly into tailored slacks, hair wrapped in a sleek bun that framed her determination. This wasn't just another corporate visit. It was a reckoning. She had flown from San Francisco the night before, trading the Pacific breeze for the roar of the 7 train, because 5 years ago, this very branch manager, now bubbly Shelby Lang, had turned her away when she tried to open a small business account. They told her blockchain was a fad, and that her small-town dreams didn't belong here. But that rejection had fueled Aisha's resolve, and today she carried not only her lily-of-the-valley scented leather tote, but the proof that her startup had grown from a scrappy idea into a multi-million-dollar platform championing financial inclusion. A hush fell as Aisha approached the counter. Other customers, white, neatly dressed professionals, were greeted with smiles and immediate service. Marcus, a middle-aged Latino man in a crisp polo, was ushered into an office before she even reached the glass partition. The teller's eyes flicked to the clock. 9:05, 9:07, 9:09. Each tick felt like a judgment, a silent question. Does she really belong? Aisha took a slow breath. She could have called, sent a security escort protocols for VIPs, but she chose to walk in alone to feel the weight of each second and turn it into accountability. "Good morning," she said, placing her business card on the counter. Shelby's lips twitched in a polite, dismissive smile. "I'm here for the final signatures on the acquisition paperwork," Aisha continued, voice steady. "Shouldn't take more than 10 minutes. The teller glanced at the card, then back at Aisha as if scrutinizing a puzzle piece that didn't belong. "You'll need an appointment," Shelby replied, tapping her screen without looking up. "We don't handle that at the counter." For a heartbeat, the lobby stilled. Aisha's fingers curled around the stem of a lily-printed keychain, a gift from her grandmother reminding her that gentle things could carry hidden strength. She raised her chin. "I arranged this yesterday," she said. "But if Devon isn't available, perhaps your manager can assist me." Shelby's eyes narrowed, and without a word, she leaned back and typed. The silent clock on the wall became Aisha's battleground. Each passing minute was a statement her worth would not be dictated by their ignorance. As the lobby doors swung open, she caught a glimpse of a security camera lurking in the corner, silently recording every moment. A promise formed in her mind by the time they realized who she was. Nothing here would be the same. The lilies in her tote almost seemed to glow. And then, nothing moved. Not the tellers, not the manager, not the TV playing muted news, just that unbroken, weighty pause that dared her to act next. "Why am I invisible?" Aisha's whisper might have been lost in the lobby's hum, but to her, it rang louder than any bell. 15 minutes had passed since she placed her EquiChain acquisition files on that counter, yet the tellers continued their casual chit-chat, as if she were a ghost haunting their space. Each polite nod they offered to other clients felt like salt rubbed into an open wound. She felt the weight of every second pressing against her chest, but she did not relent. Instead, she let the silence grow a silent protest, standing taller than her tailored slacks. A Hispanic couple arrived just behind her warm greetings, swift escort to a private office, while Aisha remained bottled in that glass box of indifference. She straightened the straps of her lily-of-the-valley tote, its floral pattern, a stark contrast to the cold linoleum underfoot. That tote held not only her laptop and contracts, but the story of every entrepreneur who'd been told, "Not here" or "Not yet." She glanced up at the digital clock, 9:18 a.m. Almost 20 minutes of waiting. Aisha reached into the pocket of her blouse and tapped her phone. A text from Ellis Duque, her COO smooth morning. She paused, could lie, say yes, but her lips curved into something fiercer. She typed back, "Not so much. Give me 10. Then she slipped the phone back, ordinary gesture, but laden with intention. Her throat tightened as Shelby Lang finally looked up. Ms. Carter. The teller's voice was polite, but brittle like fine china on the brink of shattering. Aisha met her gaze evenly. Your branch manager Thomas Beck hasn't introduced himself yet. Could you ask him to? Shelby's veneer faltered. Her lips parted, blinked. Then she tapped frantically at her screen. Aisha watched unfazed as the teller's confidence crumbled. Around them, the air felt charged like the calm before a storm. In that moment, the security camera's red light blinked overhead, a passive witness to injustice. It was more than metal and wires. It was Aisha's silent jury ready to bear witness. She pictured the footage playing back, the stoic defiance in her eyes, the teller's shifting shoulders, the lily print tote resting on the counter like a white flag, refused. That image would haunt them long after she left. And then, out of the glass corridor, stepped a man in charcoal gray hair flecked with silver. Thomas Beck, Regional Director Authority, radiating from him like heat from a forge. He paused mid-stride, taken aback by the tableau at the counter. Aisha felt the shift in energy, the corridor's breeze flowing between them. Thomas cleared his throat, a sound that snapped the lobby's atmosphere taut. Well, he said, voice low but carrying Ms. Carter. He looked at Shelby, eyes narrowing into a question. What's happening here? The staff recoiled, whispers chasing each other across the floor. Aisha allowed herself the tiniest of smiles, not of victory, but of recognition that the stage was set. She straightened, shoulders back, and turned to face him. Good morning, she repeated this time to him. I'm here to finalize the acquisition that closed last Friday. Her tone was calm, yet beneath it surged the river of her resolve. Thomas held her gaze, then glanced at the clock. Let's discuss this privately, he said, gesturing toward the conference room. The words hung between them like an invitation. Aisha nodded once. As she followed him, the lobby's tension rippled, the promise of reckoning pulsing in the air. And in that charged stillness, she felt the turn of destiny's wheel and knew the next moment would change everything. Are you aware of how long I've waited? Aisha's voice cut through the tense air of the conference room like a scalpel, precise and unyielding. Seated around a polished mahogany table, Shelby Lang, Derek Hanley, and Patricia Mehta exchanged uneasy glances as Thomas Beck closed the door behind them. The lobby's muted chaos seeped through the glass walls, whispers of customers, and the distant chime of the front door. But here, in this sterile sanctum time, felt suspended every heartbeat amplified. Aisha's lily-of-the-valley tote sat beside her chair, its delicate floral pattern stark against the table's cold sheen, a reminder of her grandmother's words, strength blooms in gentle hearts. 5 years ago, when Aisha first approached this very branch to open a modest account, she had been laughed at, told that a black woman in tech didn't belong in these halls. She remembered the sting of those dismissive smiles, the dull ache of eroded confidence. Today, she was not that aspiring entrepreneur. She was the CEO of Equichain, a billion-dollar blockchain startup dedicated to financial equity. She had come alone, no security detail, no entourage, because she wanted this moment to be about truth, not spectacle. Thomas Beck cleared his throat. Ms. Carter, we apologize for the inconvenience. Please present your documents. But his words lacked conviction, hanging in the air, as hollow as the apologies Shelby had muttered. Aisha reached into her tote and placed a slim USB drive on the table, black sleek, bearing the Equichain logo. This contains the audio recording of your front desk interaction this morning, she said without raising her voice. Your colleagues' comments and your own refusal to serve me are all here. A hush fell. Even Thomas's expression flickered with something unreadable, concern perhaps, or embarrassment. Shelby's eyes widened. Derek shifted uncomfortably, and Patricia, whose composure had seemed unshakable, now clenched her fists under the table. The intersection of technology and human accountability glowed on the USB's surface, like a beacon proof that silence could no longer protect ignorance. Aisha continued. The recording begins at 9:03 a.m. and ends at 9:35 a.m. when Devon finally stepped out of his office. It's available to corporate compliance local news outlets, and most importantly, our clients, people who deserve respect without needing to prove their worth. In that moment, the room's power dynamics inverted. The floral tote, once a symbol of vulnerability, now signified Aisha's unyielding resolve. The tellers were no longer just employees. They were participants in a system that had tolerated prejudice under polite veneers. Thomas stood clearing his throat again, but this time with purpose. Effective immediately, he began voice steady. Shelby Lang, Derek Hanley, and Patricia Mehta are relieved of their duties. You will receive formal notification from HR by noon. The words fell like gavel strikes, final and irrevocable. Aisha offered no triumphalist smile, only a calm nod. This isn't about retribution, she said softly. It's about raising a standard. She rose, her posture regal, and paused at the door. Behind her, the three former employees sank into their chairs, the weight of consequence settling over them. Outside the glass wall, customers paused, peering in with a mixture of shock and quiet approval. Aisha stepped through the door, her footsteps echoing down the corridor, leaving behind the shattered illusions of civility. As the automatic doors slid shut, she paused, hand on the handle, and glanced back one last time, her expression unreadable, but her message clear: respect is not optional. Then she vanished into the lobby's subdued light, and the bank would never feel the same. Silence can be louder than a shout, Thomas Beck asserted, as he surveyed the stunned faces in the now empty conference room. Only Devon, pale and jittery, and Janelle, wide-eyed and notebook in hand, remained. The fluorescent lights cast long shadows across the table, where the laminated Respect First poster now hung crookedly. 2 chairs sat empty. Shelby, Derek, and Patricia had departed under escort, their emails bounced and security badges deactivated. The hum of printers in the back office sounded like a dirge for the old guard. Janelle's heart pounded. Minutes ago, she'd watched the CEO of Equichain walk out without rancor, no raised voice, no theatrical flourish. Yet the ripples of that calm had shattered her world. She tapped her pen against the table, the click echoing. Devon cleared his throat, sliding his chair forward. Thomas, what happens now? He asked, voice trembling between regret and resolve. Thomas leaned in, steepling his fingers. You get a second chance, but you earn it, starting today. He turned to Janelle. Ms. Carter asked specifically for you. He paused as Janelle blinked. You're on a 6-month leadership track. You'll shadow our strongest assistant manager and implement the new inclusivity protocols. Janelle's notebook caught the overhead glow. On its first page, she'd scrawled, Stand up. Speak up. Now those words felt less like scribbles and more like a blueprint. She swallowed, mouth dry. Yes, sir, she whispered, voice steadier than she felt. Devon exhaled, glancing at her with a mix of relief and solidarity. I'll support you, he said. And I'll learn from you. Janelle managed a small smile, her hands trembling around the pen. Meanwhile, outside in the lobby, hushed whispers circulated among customers who'd witnessed the fallout. Marcus, the Latino entrepreneur who'd been served before Aisha, lingered at the glass doors phones out recording the empty teller stations. He keyed in a live tweet, Respect isn't optional. Watch what Aisha Carter did this morning. Respect first. Moments later, the tweet went viral. The bank's PR team scrambled their rehearsed statements rendered moot by raw footage and unfiltered audio. Back in the conference room, Thomas dropped a stack of printed Respect First training modules in front of Devon and Janelle. By 10:30 a.m., this branch will close for a staff-wide compliance briefing. You two will lead it. He tapped the top sheet. No excuses. This isn't a perfunctory workshop. It's a culture reset. His eyes swept the room. If you fail to change hearts, you fail your clients. Janelle stood folding her notebook. Her lily print tote rested against the wall, a silent emblem of resilience. She pictured the USB drive Aisha had left behind, cold metal, carrying uncompromising truth. Now that truth was their mandate. As the two of them gathered the materials, the overhead speakers crackled. "Attention staff, please report to the conference room for immediate training." The last echoes of that announcement trailed off as the hallway filled with hesitant footsteps. Janelle inhaled, feeling both the weight of expectation and the surge of purpose. The floral motif on her bag felt warmer, somehow proof that gentleness could coexist with firmness. She and Devon exchanged a glance ally to ally, ready to guide their colleagues through humility and respect. Just then, Janelle's phone buzzed a notification from Equichain's Slack channel. Aisha had posted a message to the entire company. "Stand by for the next phase of Chwartart respect first. Change isn't a moment, it's a movement." Janelle stared at the screen, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The door to the conference room swung open, and she stepped forward, pen poised and heart racing. In that charged silence, she realized this was her moment to transform more than a branch. It was a chance to reshape an industry. And as she crossed the threshold, every fiber of her being braced for the challenge ahead. Change doesn't happen in a whisper, Janelle thought, as she waited for the last staff member to file into the conference room. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and the Respect First posters freshly laminated glinted on the walls. At exactly 10:30 a.m., she stood and tapped her pen against the podium. "Good morning," she began, voice steady, despite the rapid drum of her heartbeat. "I'm Janelle Rowe, and today we're rewriting the story of this branch." A hush fell over the room. Tellers who had once bantered and laughed at Aisha Carter's expense now shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A middle-aged teller raised her hand. "What's this all about, kid?" she asked. Janelle met her gaze, unflinching. "It's about respect," she said, simply glancing at Devon, who stood to her right. "About treating everyone who walks through that door as more than a transaction." The word transaction echoed through the room like a rebuke. She clicked her remote, and the screen behind her lit up with the first slide, a single white lily against a black background. "This," Janelle said, pointing to the lily, "is a symbol of strength in gentleness. Aisha carried a lily print tote this morning. It reminded us that compassion can be our greatest power." A murmur rippled across the room. Tell-heirs exchanged glances, some skeptical, others quietly intrigued. Janelle dove into the new protocol: active listening, zero tolerance for microaggressions, mandatory empathy breaks. When she paused for questions, Derek Hanley cleared his throat. "So, what happens if someone slips up?" His voice wavered. Janelle leaned forward. "Then they own it," she said. "You apologize, you learn, you recommit. Because respect isn't optional." A ripple of nods spread out. Even Patricia, meta-arms folded, looked down at her notepad, pen tapping. Midway through the session, Marcus, the customer who had live-tweeted Aisha's arrival, strode in with his phone still in hand. "Sorry I'm late," he said, breathing hard. He tapped his screen. "I just wanted to say that what happened here today is bigger than any of us." He looked around. Social media's watching, but real change starts in moments like this. Janelle felt a surge of relief. It wasn't just corporate PR anymore. It was a community reckoning. As the training closed, Devon stepped forward, voice cracking only slightly. I'm sorry for not standing up yesterday," he said. "I promise to be better." He extended his hand to Janelle. She squeezed it firmly. "Thank you," she replied. "Now let's make sure nobody here ever wonders if they belong." The room exhaled as one. But as they began to collect the laminated modules, the overhead speaker crackled to life. "Attention all staff, please report to your workstations. We will resume services in 10 minutes. Janelle's pulse thrummed. Outside, the lobby lights were already flickering back on. The first customers would return unaware of the transformation that had just unfolded behind the scenes. Janelle glanced at Devon. "You ready?" he asked. She took a breath, smoothing the edge of her lily print tote. "I am." And as the doors to the conference room swung open, she stepped into a lobby that felt electrified with possibility, each empty chair, each silent teller station a blank page for the next chapter. The real test was about to begin. By noon, their names didn't exist, Aisha Carter murmured as she stepped into the modest brick HR office in Cincinnati, the morning sunlight casting long beams through dusty blinds. Around the oval table sat Ellis Duque, her COO, whose calm bore the marks of someone who'd navigated storms before breakfast and sealed deals by lunch, and two senior HR directors in crisp suits. A single white lily, now wilted at the edges, rested in a slender glass vase between them, a silent reminder of the strength that blooms even in hardship. Ellis cleared his throat. "We've reviewed the branch report," he began, sliding a stack of performance files toward Aisha. "Your decision this morning executed flawlessly, but now we need a sustainable plan." The HR directors exchanged glances, eyes flicking to Aisha's folded arms and the faint crease on her forehead that spoke of sleepless nights. She felt the weight of each file as more than paper. They were lives' careers, and a test of whether one moment of accountability could ripple into lasting change. She reached out and tapped the top folder. "Here's what I propose," she said, voice soft yet unwavering. "We put Janelle on a 6-month leadership track rotate in a seasoned assistant manager to mentor her and roll out the Respect First protocol across all 50 local branches." She paused, watching Ellis nod. Then she added, "And we celebrate small wins every time a branch logs 0 microaggressions for a week. We spotlight them on our internal bulletin. Make respect visible." The HR director leaned forward, pencil poised. "Metrics will matter," she said. "But how do we ensure authenticity, not just compliance?" Aisha's gaze drifted to the lily petals, curled but still standing. "We embed personal stories into training," she replied. "Bring in employees who've felt unseen to share their experiences. We humanize the data." The director's pencil stilled a smile creeping onto her lips. The lily's symbolism, delicacy, and resilience intertwined was more than aesthetic. It was a philosophy. Ellis cleared his throat again. "There's one more piece," he said. "We need a public statement. The local press is already sniffing around." Aisha exhaled slowly. She wanted more than a bland press release. She needed a manifesto. "I'll record a message," she said. "Not corporate jargon, but the truth that respect isn't a slogan. It's a daily choice. We'll share our failures as openly as our successes." The HR director raised her eyebrows. "Risky," she murmured, "but impactful." Aisha allowed herself a small, wry smile. She'd never been one to settle for safe. The meeting, wrapped with action items, finalized Janelle's development plan, draft the public video, and schedule the first Respect First rollout meeting. As Aisha gathered her files, the lily's final petal dropped into the vase. She caught it in her palm, a tiny, fragile token, and turned it over between her fingers. The room was silent, the only sound her heartbeat. The fallen petal was proof that even symbols must sacrifice themselves to make a point. Stepping into the hallway, Aisha felt the weight of the day settle like rain, but also the promise of renewal. Her phone buzzed a message from Janelle. "Thank you for believing in me." Aisha paused, staring at the screen. The connection between two women, a CEO and a teller, had sparked a movement. Yet the path ahead was fraught with unknowns. Could one branch's transformation inspire 50 more? Could a protocol born of pain become a beacon of hope? She pocketed the petal, her fingers brushing its softness. The next step loomed: a local press conference, dozens of cameras, and the public eye. As she exited the HR office, the corridors echoed with distant laughter and the hum of routine. Behind her, the lily lay stripped of its petals, but standing tall, a reminder that sometimes to grow, you must first let things fall away. And with that thought, she walked toward her car, ready to face the world she intended to change. Ever been thanked for simply being yourself? Aisha Carter's soft question hung in the air between her and the young teller as she slid a business card across the counter. The branch doors behind her whispered closed, sealing off the morning rush of transactions she'd just witnessed. No tension, no pretense, just genuine warmth. It was the third bank she'd visited that week, each one an acquisition domino in her Respect First campaign. But this one felt different. The teller, Maya, blinked at the card, reading Aisha's name and title with a surprised smile. "I don't know what to say," she stammered, cheeks coloring. Aisha's fingers brushed Maya's in a fleeting gesture of camaraderie. "Just keep doing what you're doing," she replied. "Because kindness isn't a bonus, it's the baseline." A faint scent of chamomile tea drifted from the waiting area where potted plants leaned toward sunlight streaming through tall windows. Aisha breathed it in, remembering the wilted lily petal she'd carried from Cincinnati, like a talisman, fragile proof that change once seeded needed nourishment. Today she offered Maya a live example of that nourishment recognition without fanfare. As the young teller tucked the card into her apron pocket, Aisha spotted the small brass plaque beside the counter, "Employees who made a difference." Maya's photo hung there her first month on the job, an emblem of genuine service amidst a sea of stale routine. The transaction ended a simple funds transfer, and Maya wished Aisha a good day with a sincerity that echoed through Aisha's chest. She nodded, stepping away from the counter, each footfall a statement respect ripples outward. As she reached for the door, she turned back and said, "Don't let anyone train that spirit out of you." Maya's eyes filled. Aisha stepped into the lobby's late afternoon glow and paused, letting the moment sink in. No cameras, no scripts, just human connection. Her phone buzzed a calendar reminder for the evening session with interns at Equichain's Cincinnati headquarters. The contrast was stark open-plan desks, polished floors, a dozen eager faces waiting for stories that textbooks never teach. But it was there she would weave together the lessons from three branches, from ducked eyes to uplifted spirits. As she crossed the parking lot, clouds gathered gray and low, a poetic backdrop for a woman whose storm had become someone else's sunshine. Back in the car, she dialed Ellis. "How's the press release draft?" she asked, voice calm but insistent. He chuckled. "Draft looks good, but the headline's weak. They want data metrics over moments." Aisha inhaled. "Then we give them both," she said. "Trim the stats but keep the stories, because people remember people, not percentages." Silence crackled. Then Ellis agreed. She hung up and stared into the rearview mirror, her reflection framed by the gathering sky. The lily motif on her tote caught her eye petals in perpetual bloom. She pressed the key fob. The car's engine hummed awake, a low echo of her own resolve. Ahead lay speeches to interns who'd never heard of microaggressions, 101 boardrooms, hungry for authenticity, and a social media world primed to amplify every honest echo. Yet for all that lay ahead, Aisha treasured this quiet sunrise of change, visiting one branch at a time, lifting one teller's soul, one lily-white gesture at a time. The engine idled as she slipped a hand over the steering wheel. Somewhere between the line of teller stations and the glow of laptop screens awaited the next chapter. And with that, she drove onward, leaving behind doors opened by respect and hearts waiting to be opened in return. Have you ever felt invisible in your own story? Aisha Carter's voice rang out across the row of bright-eyed interns at Equichain's Innovation Hub, her question hanging in the air like a challenge. The room fell silent, save for the hum of laptops and the distant click of heels in the hallway. 18 fresh-faced graduates, braids, sharp suits, quiet curiosities, leaned forward, pens poised over notepads. Aisha stood before them in her signature black blazer, her lily-of-the-valley tote, resting at her feet like a silent testament to journeys taken and battles fought. She began not with bullet points, but with a memory. 5 years ago, I walked into a bank just like this, one heart full of hope and hands shaking with ambition, and I was turned away, told I didn't belong. But today, thanks to every misstep, every closed door, and every moment of doubt, I stand here not just as CEO, but as a witness to change. Her gaze swept the room, landing on a tall intern with braids who met her eyes unflinchingly. You will walk into rooms where people measure you by your name, your accent, your shoes. Do not let them write your story. Aisha clicked her remote, and the screen behind her displayed a single word in bold, remember. Beneath it, the image of a white lily, petals unfurled against darkness, pulled a collective breath from the audience. That lily is more than a flower, she continued softly. It's proof that softness and strength can coexist. You see petals, but you feel resolve. You see grace, but you feel roots gripping the earth. She paused, letting the metaphor sink in. In your careers, you'll face microaggressions, words whispered, eyes turned away, deals delayed. When that happens, hold on to your roots. You belong. A murmur rippled as she shared snippets of Marcus's live tweet, Devon's apology, Janelle's leadership debut, and the community's viral embrace of Tourart respect first. These weren't corporate victories, they were human triumphs. Each story threaded together a tapestry of accountability and empathy that began with a single act of defiance in a Queen's branch. Not every challenge will end in a viral moment, Aisha warned. Most will be unnoticed. But every choice to listen to, speak up, to show up with kindness shapes culture. As she spoke, the overhead lights dimmed, spotlighting her final slide, a blank page with a single prompt, "What will you do when no one is watching?" The interns scribbled furiously. Aisha stepped away from the podium and walked between the rows, her presence a living symbol of the standards she preached. This movement isn't just mine. It's yours now. Take that lily, carry its fragrance into your teams, your projects, your communities. Water it with courage and let it bloom in unexpected places. She returned to the front, eyes glistening. So tell me, what will you do when no one is watching? The question reverberated against the glass walls unanswered. And in that pregnant pause lay both a challenge and a promise. The real work was just beginning. Beyond these walls, countless doors awaited the next Aisha, young, underestimated, ready to remind the world that respect is not a privilege, but a birthright. And as the interns sat still, hearts racing, the future felt both uncertain and incandescent. The story wasn't over. It was theirs to write.